All right. Now it's time to close off this damn show, this damn episode with the final topic that you guys voted in on the community poll. It's time for the top 10 most underrated games. My personal picks, got them lined up. Took way longer than it should have for me to order this list out to separate my top 10. To I probably should have like went console by console first. After I put up this poll, I was like, that's a fucking yeah. You should have went like top 10 most underrated PS1 games, top 10 most underrated PS2, PS3, PS4, PS like you blow the whole fucking load doing like the top 10 all time at the start. Like I can't go in console by console at this point. And yeah, regardless, top 10 most underrated games of all time, according to me, myself, and I. All right. Number 10. Going with one that you'll probably expect from me if you've been following the channel for a while. Resident Evil 6. Hands down. One of the most hated mainline games from any franchise ever. And I I just don't really get it. I just don't really get it at all. It has more significant content packed into one Resident Evil game than any other in the franchise by a long shot. You're talking about well over 20 hours of gameplay with the multiple different campaigns. You're talking about Leon and Ada. Their campaigns alone are worth the price of admission. They're so solid. Huge highlights narratively for both of those characters. And just narratively in general, there's this real focus on cinematic storytelling and giving these characters that we've come to love over the last fucking couple decades a real spotlight. You know, these characters, this story in Resident Evil 6, it actually feels important, and it's not like just an afterthought to get you back to the gameplay. And not to mention, dude, this is the first mainline Resident Evil game where you can move and shoot. You know, with that new third person over the shoulder perspective that you got with RE4, you couldn't move and shoot in 05. You couldn't move and shoot in RE5, which launched in what was that, 2009, 2000? Yeah, I think it was 2009 because I believe it came out. Did it come out the same years? Whatever. It came out either 08, 09, and then you're looking at Dead Space. They're moving and shooting. I was like, well, what the fuck's going on here? And then RE6 drops. You're moving and shooting in a Resident Evil mainline game, and it fucking plays great. It feels great to play Resident Evil 6. I don't really understand how you can love RE4. Okay, I can see how you love RE4 and maybe dislike RE6 because there's a huge leap in just the amount of action. I can understand how you are if you're a true like OG Resident Evil 1 through 3 fan, I get you not liking RE5 and RE6. But if you like RE5 and don't like RE6, I just don't even understand that. I don't understand that logic at all. But hey, to each his own. We all have opinions and we're all assholes, or however that saying goes. Number 9, The Forgotten City. This is a recent one, and I actually have one more that's even more recent than that, but I'm very passionate about both of them. The Forgotten City, this fucking little gem of a video game. It dropped in 2021 and was one of my favorite games of the year, and I think one of my all-time favorite indie experiences in general. It's this first person open world time looping mystery adventure, but I think the key to this game's uniqueness really lies in the characters and their involvement with the world. Like literally every single character in this game world plays a huge role in resolving this mystery. Kind of like, you know, we were talking about earlier with a space for the unbound. There's some similarities there with the level of detail and importance that's put into all of the characters, but even more so in the Forgotten City. Everyone in this world, literally everyone in this world, is important. Holding a key piece of information, holding a key piece of lore, holding a key piece to move the story forward. And the setup of the Forgotten City with, the whole time looping thing, how they play into that with the world pretty much resetting on itself if you commit like one of the 10 deadly sins. If you go off and you fucking rob somebody, you murder somebody, whatever the case may be, the world begins to reset, and like these fucking guards come out and they're trying to kill you, and you got to go and jump through this portal. But when you come back on the other side of the portal, all the information that you retained previously from your last run, you still keep. And so every single run, you're going in with more information, more clues on how to solve this mystery. And it wraps up you got multiple endings, branching plot lines, and it's so compact and full of rich detail and great story. And you're talking about a game that I think was developed by, I could be wrong on this, but I think it was like 5 people or maybe even less than that. Truly a fucking remarkable achievement that I would recommend anybody and everybody to go and check out. Also, visually, fucking good, real good. It started off as a damn Skyrim mod, but people are like, dude, this is so dope. You got to fucking crank this out and make it into a main game. And they did indeed. The Forgotten City. It's a blast. That's number 9. Number 8, we have The Suffering. The motherfucking Suffering is so underrated. A classic 6th gen title in an era where brutality and violence were king. The Suffering was an absolute god amongst kings. It was so brutal, so gory, so violent. Um, for those of you who aren't aware of what the Suffering is, it's essentially like this third person shooter that's set in a prison setting where you're playing this dude who is convicted for killing his wife and kids. He has no memory of it. And you're kind of exploring that plot line. But really the star of the show here, for one, it really begins with the monster design in this game. It's, I would say, hands down the sickest thing about the Suffering. Each monster that you battle, each enemy that you battle is designed in the form of a prison execution. So you'll battle enemies that have like been beheaded or hung, and they're just like hanging from the, you see the torso just fucking hanging there and the head hanging there on the news. It's so grotesque, or even like little subtle uh executions, or not executions, but like subtle deaths that take place in prison, where like someone will be wrapped in the fucking isolation, the isolation jacket, whatever you call it, and they were left to fucking rot away in an isolation tank. And you're running into those enemies. It's littered with all these cool enemy designs and different types of monsters to run up against. And yeah, just the atmosphere is phenomenal. The third person shooting is phenomenal. It feels kind of like if you guys played the Punisher game on the PS2. It feels a little bit reminiscent of that, just game feel and control wise. But yeah, great weapons, great atmosphere, kick-ass soundtrack. It's a badass third person shooter on the PlayStation 2. Number 7. This is the one. This is definitely the newest, the freshest on the list. But I loved this game so much last year that I got to give it a shout out. For those of you who have been around a while, you're gonna know this. Evil West. I got to say, I was a little bit bummed last year, man. I'm finishing up the year, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm playing Evil West. I'm like, this is definitely a game that by 6 months or whatever, when it goes on sale and people are getting their hands on it for the first time, people are just going to be praising this thing, talking about it's the hidden gem of the century. And it didn't really happen in the wave or in the frequency that I expected. You do see people talking about it and people praising it, but Evil West is so good, dude. It's so good. if you can find this thing on a sale, hell, I would recommend it at full price, but I know to each his own on that. Some people, it's a shorter game. You know, you're talking about a whatever 10-ish hour third person brutal melee action. You know, you got your firearms, your melee combat, tons of skill trees that add great variety to this gameplay system. Like we talked about with the suffering, immense amounts of gore. Your volleyball spiking your enemy into literal spikes, seeing the damn spike protrude through their fucking gut. It's bloody, gory, fun as hell. You get all these cool different, like you get like this shock ability, and you have this like super fast zap ability where you're going from one enemy to the next at light speed, and it really feels like it controls and plays a lot like a God of War style game, but with obviously with firearms. But it removes a lot of the tedious stuff from the God of War games. A lot of the puzzle solving's gone. The story is a lot more campy, a lot less serious, and a lot, I it's not on the level of a God of War story. I'm not, or at least the 2018 and then 2022 game, but I will say the campiness and the fun of it, and it's presented well with a nice cinematic flair, and you know, this Western vampire slaying world. The monsters are great. It's a fucking great game. Evil West, number 7. Coming in at number 6, though, we have Freedom Fighters. Old classic EA days, back when they were cranking out these 8 to 10 hour games on a regular basis. And I think Freedom Fighters is one of the best that they ever made. Just not even just within the 8 to 10 hour range or restriction there. Like one of the best EA games ever. It's fucking great. IO Interactive was actually the developer on Freedom Fighters, which I didn't even know before making this list. IO Interactive, for those of you who don't know, the team that developed the Hitman series, and then also developed this damn Freedom Fighters game, and they absolutely crushed it, dude. It's this alternate history sort of plot line where Russia wins the Cold War, but I the story is solid. The story is solid. It's good with Freedom Fighters, but really the star of the show is the gameplay. It's the third person shooting that controls incredibly well, very fast paced, but also very tactile and strategic, where you can like command your squad with very simple button prompts to move in or fall back, regroup, whatever. And at the time, the AI was just incredibly fucking advanced. Your troops were always, you know, on their toes, very responsive, doing exactly what you sent them to do. And it wasn't like too cumbersome to engage with those systems. Like the strategic aspects of the game were actually fun and aided the third person shooting, opposed to uh, taking away from that experience. And it just all blended together so well with a solid story, great third person shooting. The strategic elements were very advanced for the time. The AI was very advanced for the time. It was just a really great video game that unfortunately it just doesn't really get talked about enough today. Coming in at number 5, I have Beyond Good and Evil. Such a slept on title. Probably maybe my favorite Ubisoft game ever. It would be right up there with like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I actually think is a pretty damn underrated Assassin's Creed game. But for whatever reason, Ubisoft is just in total refusal mode to get this damn sequel out. And it just bums me out, man. It really bums me out because I think that some of the shit we saw, some of the gameplay we saw of that sequel looked really promising. But regardless, whatever. Beyond Good and Evil 1 is magnificent. It's combining stealth sections with full on action, with fucking hovercraft exploration and little mini games where you're racing your hovercraft or playing some air hockey s games. And it also I think has a deceptively deep story when you look at it. The presentation, it looks a little bit cartoony, but when you actually get in, you're talking about plot lines of government conspiracy and like secret shadowy organizations and shit. Like there's a lot going on with Beyond Good and Evil. That first game that are a lot deeper and much better narratively than you would expect. Highly recommend checking out Beyond Good and Evil. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever see a sequel. Number 4, Alpha Protocol. This thing is sitting at a 64 on Metacritic. I don't know what else I can add there. Ridiculous. This game fucking rules. It's a Obsidian developed third person shooter action role playing game where 100% of the focus with Alpha Protocol is in the narrative. You're playing as Michael Thornton. I actually just replayed it, playing as Michael Thornton, and you are essentially betrayed by the American government, and you're sent off on your own to recover information, recover intel, working with some shady people that may or may not be looking out for your best interests, may or may not be someone that you should or should not align with. It's all about the narrative. It's all about the decisions you make. The gameplay is decent enough, but it's just an all-time great story that is sitting at a fucking 64 on Metacritic right now. It's like it doesn't even make any sense at all to me. The Alpha Protocol is really damn great, like legitimately really great. I don't get it. Number 3, Jade Empire, BioWare's Forgotten Gem. And once again, talking about like reviews here, don't get me wrong, like this game did not perform poorly when it was reviewed. It was reviewed really, really well. It's just, once again, talking about the general discussion around games, and when people are discussing like the best 6th gen titles, no one really brings up Jade Empire, and it absolutely belongs in that discussion. It's giving your great BioWare narrative with the decision making and the unexpected twists, along with they're really the first time BioWare ever delved into like full on real time action with this solid ass melee combat system in Jade Empire. I really think this is the best in terms of like melee combat, real-time action melee combat. I think this is the best that BioWare's ever done. I enjoy the combat system in Jade Empire more than I do in like Dragon Age Inquisition. And yeah, it's just like they have these crazy fucking transformations where you're shape shifting into a damn rhino like figure and just fucking wreaking havoc on the world. Just a dope ass game full of customization and different fighting styles and cool ass like little pacing shakeups out of nowhere. Like you'll have a section where you go from your full-time real combat stuff to taking control of a ship and engaging in like almost some shoot 'em up action. You're in the skies battling it out. So sick. It's so fun. It's absolutely, it belongs in the discussion when people are talking about the greatest. Well, this would be an Xbox exclusive, but when you're talking about the greatest from that generation, the PS2 and Xbox and GameCube era, this is absolutely among the greatest of that era. And it's never discussed as such, which bums me out. Number 2, The Evil Within 2. You guys that know me, you knew this would be on the list. To me, this is the best survival horror game since RE4 in 2005, like when it released. Obviously, the remake, RE4 remake, we're not talking about that. When The Evil Within 2 dropped in 2017, I think at that time it was the best survival horror game since RE4 in '05. It 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 gives you this like smallish open world that evolves in the most intentional and dangerous manner, making you question if hunting for the resources is worth it. But what I think makes the open world so unique is the fact that it's not even like the main focus of the game. You get this full on linear story path to follow along with that's really damn good and has a fucking great ending. And then on top of that, as just a nice little cherry on top, you get an open world to explore that gives you more story context, that gives you some little side quests to go and do with Sebastian. It's excellent. And the gameplay is excellent. It feels so much better in every regard than the first game. Just controlling Sebastian feels so much better. It kind of feels like it took some inspiration from The Last of Us, and I just think it benefits greatly from it. it. It's sitting at a damn 76 on Metacritic right now, the PS4 version, which is the one I played. And that's 1000% bullshit. I know it's subjective. I know it's opinions. That's a crazy opinion. That's an insane opinion that many people had at the same time came up with this thing to sit at a 76. This many critics that have been playing games for that damn long. Come on, man. What are we doing to the Evil Within 2? A 76? Asinine. Ass a 10, ass a 11, ass a 12. Number one, the most underrated game ever made, according to me. Sleeping Dogs. This is on par and surpasses. I'll say surpasses straight up in almost every regard, every possible metric. I think this game surpasses pretty much any Grand Theft Auto game, at least modern Grand Theft Auto game. 100%. This is better than Grand Theft Auto 5. This is better than Grand Theft Auto 4. And it's sitting at a 77 on Metacritic. It's criminal. And I'm not bringing up Metacritic for every single game here because some of the games, we're talking about underrated titles that just maybe don't get discussed enough, or they're so great, people know they're great, but they don't get discussed when talking about all-time greats. I think that's underrated, overlooked, whatever you want to call it. But this is like in the purest sense of the word, the pure definition of underrated. Sleeping Dogs is that. This game is like a combination of Max Payne with a, like I said, a Grand Theft Auto like open world with like Arkham like combat, also with solid shooting. I mean, let me repeat. Arkham like combat, which is the best melee combat in the history of video games. A Grand Theft Auto like open world. Rockstar creates the greatest open worlds in the history of video games. Max Payne like fucking bullet time mechanics and shit at times, which is one of the wildest, most innovative, fucking great little features, mechanics in game history. And it's all combined into Sleeping Dogs with fucking high octane uh, Italian job, Fast and Furious. I can't think of good chase sequences right now off the top of my head for movies, but like it has some of those chase scenes that you'll see from movies where your character's jumping from the top of the car to jumping from the top of he hops on the roof of his car, hops to the roof of the other car that he's chasing, pulls the bad guy out of the car. Like, it's fucking epic. The boat chases, just some of the shit that takes place in this game it's ridiculous. It's the most underrated game I've ever played in my life. There wasn't a millisecond of this game where I wasn't having an absolute blast. And it's an open world 30 plus hour game. And not a millisecond went by where I wasn't enjoying the shit out of this product. It's great. The story's solid. The kind of the betrayal arc of this cop and going in and going undercover and getting involved with this crime syndicate and the conflicting emotions that start to build over the course of this story. Top tier. It's fucking top tier. Sleeping Dogs is the best of the best. It's the most underrated game ever created as far as my brain is concerned.